What was the Cardinals' best offseason acquisition? Is 16 really just best player available? And are the Cardinals drafting for depth or need, if you had to pick one? Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen. Free wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. We are in full swing in guest week. We had Mina Kimes on Monday, Marcus Mosher yesterday to talk some draft, and today, one of my dear friends, one of the hardest working men in Phoenix, Tyler Drake from Arizona Sports joins me. Tyler, what's up, dude?
What's up? That's a lineup to follow up. So I've got to be on my A game for sure.
Yeah, they better be paying you mileage over at Arizona Sports. I'll tell you that.
The running joke is that I'm in a different county because I technically live in a different county,
which is ridiculous. I mean, it doesn't like for those that know the beat, there's nothing close in Arizona. Let's just put it that way in Phoenix and Maricopa County. So new tires every year. Tyler, we're going to discuss a lot of stuff here about the Cardinals as we're kind of in that limbo state where it's like December 27th and nobody knows what day it is and it's not the new year yet between free agency and the draft. We're ramping up and, the offseason was one that was ho-hum at times and then really, really impactful at others. A lot to do at 16. The Cardinals, with their needs, is the best player available in the draft. And then are they drafting for depth or need if you kind of really had to pick one? So Josh Sweat, Dalvin Tomlinson, Jacoby Brissett, bringing back Evan Neal, bringing back Kelvin Beachum. What would you say is the most important offseason move for the Cardinals thus far?
So I think the easy answer would be Josh Sweat, just because that's an obvious need that needed to be filled. They got that there. I feel like that plus the re-signing of Baron Browning, you really kind of see that pass rushers room kind of rounded out right now. Maybe they bring in somebody else to challenge a little bit. But for the most part, you would imagine B.J. Ojulari is coming back healthy. It's going to be an interesting room for sure. Xavier Thomas is there too. But for me, I think I'm really leaning toward the Dalvin Tomlinson addition because of just add some really legit beef. Like, we're in the media room and I'm sitting in the back because I've got to use the recorder for the radio side. And I usually get to see the people walking down the hallway, give everybody kind of a heads up. And he came around the corner and it was like, oh my goodness, this dude barely fits through the hallway. And and then you see kind of the personality that he has. He's going to be not only a really good dude on the field, but I think he's going to be a fan favorite. And I think he's going to be even a better mentor off the field for the guys like Darius Robinson and Dante Stills. You throw him in the mix with the Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones, who hopefully are coming back healthy. That defensive line room is looking a lot different now from last year. So obviously it's on paper. We've got to see it translate on the field. But right now, I'm really liking what I'm seeing coming out of the D line room, especially when you add a guy like Tomlinson. So yes, stuff still has to get shaken out. I like the LJ Collier re-signing as well, but right now I leaps and bounds better than I think it looked last year at this time for sure.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. I'll get to that in a second, but I've been saying after the end of last season, it's like the Cardinals defense is far away, but they're 2 moves away from not being. And they did that really quickly. It's like, oh, look at what happens when you fill holes with a guy who doesn't need to be the number 1 defensive tackle on the market. It doesn't need to be the number 1 pass rusher on the market. They paid them $50 million combined over 6 years collectively. That's bargain shopping for dudes who are B-plus level players and can peak out at A-level players depending on scheme and production. And I agree with you with Dalvin Tomlinson because Darius Robinson, because he didn't play last year, is getting written off. It's the dumbest. Like, he is the perfect mentor. And I think with B.J. Ojulari, he was accomplished in college. His brother's been in the league. I think with pass rusher, it's a lot of it's by committee, and that's what we've seen over the last couple of years. Even with Vance Joseph, like that's what we saw. It's always been by committee since Chandler Jones kind of has fallen off. The interior defensive line is so important, and I think that's the group that can be relied upon if you're comparing pass rush to the interior. And then when they drafted 16, I don't see them taking an interior defensive lineman at this point. We'll talk about that next segment. With that, he is a Christian Wilkins light with his just levity while playing football. He's got a big smile. He's a big jokester. I talk to some of my friends in the Minnesota circles and in Cleveland, like he's a perfect Calais Campbell dude to be able to add impact to a team that's already moving in the right direction with leaders that are already in place.
Yeah, and I love his whole Thanos niche too with the glove that he draws on the Infinity Gauntlet, the Infinity Stones, and that's it's just fun. You got to have fun at this level of the game, and he's clearly a dude that's going to, I think, bring an added level of that to the locker room, and I think it's an underrated aspect of his of his game, what he's bringing over.
Yeah. So tell me about Jacoby Brissett. What respected dude, like I know about Jacoby Brissett. Tell me what you think about it, because he's respected around the league. He's a guy, he's a perfect guy. He's a new age version of Colt McCoy who can run this offense. He's a better version of Josh Dobbs. He's a lot more self-edit. He's able to run this offense and be what you want a backup quarterback to be, which is 75% of what the starting quarterback's production is.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the most underrated outside signing. I like to differentiate between re-signings and outside signings, but to me, that's the most underrated one, just because, the hope is that he never sees the field, or if he does, it's when the Cardinals have a playoff spot clinch. So just what he can bring to that quarterback's room, being already in Drew Petzing's system, knowing Israel Wolfork, knowing Jonathan Gannon, he's already got all these connections in the building. So that alone, his transition is going to be easy. I think it's going to be seamless. And then just working with Kyler and being able to give him maybe a little more than what a Colt McCoy was able to give him, just because he's got a similar game of like, he can still tuck and run if he needs to and pick up the yards with his feet. So he's going to give Kyler an aspect of maybe something he hasn't had in previous seasons. And I just really like the rounding out in that quarterback's room, because Clayton Tune's still in there. I think he can still learn a lot too from Jacoby as well. So really, really excited to see that relationship kind of develop and blossom, because if they can get all on the same page and move forward, that's just going to be there's just going to be better chemistry within the room. And I think that's going to translate more into Kyler knowing this offense that much more, because you can tell Jacoby really, really likes how Petzing has kind of taken that Cleveland thought and made it his own in Arizona.
Yeah. And the interesting part about this with Clayton Tune, for the truthers out there, this is not because of his performance against Cleveland 2 years ago. This is because there's a proven commodity that is Jacoby Brissett, who has been a stable force wherever he's gone, whether it's New England or Indianapolis or Miami. I think he was there too, or Cleveland. Like, Jacoby Brissett is that level up that you need in the NFL nowadays, where if you don't have two quarterbacks, you're behind the curve. And I do think in a wrinkle that that fascinates me going into next season. This year it was what they were going to do on fourth down. Next season is what their short yardage is going to look like. And I'm sure, because I would trust Jacoby Brissett coming in at any time, running any sort of short yardage package that isn't the tush push. You put James Conner and him on the field at the same time. You run heavy. You have two tight ends, and you bring the beef up front, and whatever they run, Jacoby Brissett will be able to execute it. And I think the Cardinals' short yardage next year is going to be a focal point, especially to be able to move the sticks and keep the offense humming.
Yeah, it's funny because, I mean, in 2023, he was the guy that I really wanted them to go sign, knowing that Kyler wasn't going to be available for the first half of the season. I thought he would be an incredible bridge quarterback, not only because he could keep them competitive throughout that 8-10 weeks, plus could be that mentor in that offense that Kyler could really use coming back into a new system and everything else. Obviously, it didn't work out, but you can tell that he's really excited to be back with all of these guys, especially JG. He had a lot of funny stories to say about their time in Indianapolis together. So, easily the most underrated outside signing for me, for sure.
Tyler Drake, Arizona Sports, all over that damn station. Follow him at T Drake4 Sports on Twitter. Best player available at 16 for the Cardinals. We'll discuss it next. Locked on Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked on Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at the Game Time app. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd, and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. Getting tickets shouldn't be stressful, and that's where Game Time comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. They've got this toggle called Game Time Picks. It's a curation that makes it easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. The biggest thing for me is the the view from your seat feature, where say you want to go to a Suns game or you want to go to a D-backs game that's right around the corner. You can click on the section and row of the seats before you purchase it, and it'll give you a panoramic view from your seat of your view if you were to buy those tickets. It's an absolute game changer. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Tyler Drake joining me on the tertiary installment of Guest Week when I'm on vacation in Puerto Rico. So you're talking to me now. I'm sitting on a beach drinking a pina colada right now. More of a Mai Tai guy. I'm not really a pina colada. I'm not really a coconut guy. I digress. That's your squirrel moment for the day. So 16 is a chef's kiss spot for a team that has a couple needs in a draft that is very deep with two of those needs in defensive tackle and pass rush, which could lend the Cardinals to be going outside the box a little bit. Corner is a hot position that the Cardinals have been linked to. Trevor Sikkema, former Locked On guy, now All-World, the Pro Football Focus, was the first to mock Will Johnson to the Cardinals. Seems like Will Johnson may be going top 10 at this point. Marcus said that yesterday when we talked to him about the draft. Is the best player available at 16, or should the Cardinals looking to be actively moving out of this pick to get more capital? What are your thoughts on 16?
Yeah, after all the signings, after all the free agency frenzy, I would say now I'm very much in the trade down and get some picks, because there's still so much potential in the first round and that later half in the 20s and beyond. So really, I think that's where they go now. That's, if I was Monty Osfor at this moment right now, I would say trade that pick. Let's move down into the 20s, mid 20s, and still land somebody like an offensive lineman, because after everything that's happened, I think that's probably the best way to go to really shore up the line. And then you move forward and add some depth behind the some of the other positions that you just filled. And obviously cornerback is right there too as well. I like, and call me crazy, I like what this cornerbacks room is looking like right now. I think, yes, bringing in another guy would be great, but I do think it's a bit crowded now, and these guys got to develop. And I think we're seeing how the Max Meltons of the world came along late. Give him some more time, see what he turns into. You don't need to go spend a top two, 2-round pick on a guy like that. So I just am very much in the trenches. If you don't want to go offensive line, go back to defensive line. I don't think you can ever have too much depth there. But right now, I'm fully in. Trade the pick, get down, and go grab an offensive lineman, guard or tackle, really. Yeah.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they do with Will Hernandez. I don't know why they haven't re-signed him yet. I feel like maybe it's kind of maybe a handshake thing where it's like, go enjoy your vacation. Let's talk in a couple months.
Maybe.
Because he's like, I had Justin Pugh on. It was a couple months ago at this point. He's like, I talked to Will a couple days ago. That dude's got thick bones. He recovers so much more quickly than other people. Will Hernandez he's for many years, I said this team has very few Arizona Cardinals on it. It was a transplant team, and Will Hernandez has indoctrinated himself like James Conner as an Arizona Cardinal. People are going to forget that he played for the Giants.
Yep.
If he stays here for a couple more years. And I think that needs to be valued more than just, he's a right guard with this age coming off this injury, let him move off. It's so dumb. We talked about that with Budda Baker and James Conner. It's like, why do you have to let him go?
Yeah.
Why? Oh, because society up until this point says this age, let go. How's Jesse Bates doing? How's Cincinnati doing? Let's chill on what everybody's said forever and just actually think for yourself.
And so it could be a matter of it could just be a matter of, hey, let's wait till you're 100% and that you can get back on the field, and we'll iron something out. We've got something in the works. We just got to wait for you to check off that final box. It could be as simple as that too.
Yeah, I mean, and with that, to your point of moving back, like obviously the Cinderella story kind of thing would be Josh Simmons, right tackle, Justin Fry coming over from Ohio State. You have your
Jackson too.
Donovan, oh, that's right. So there's a couple options, yeah.
Yep,
and then him and you have your bookends from Ohio State. The Cardinals continuing their growth as Ohio State West. It's I think the best part about this is, irrespective of what they do at 16, all of the options are good.
Mm-hmm.
Like this isn't like so if they miss on this, then their roster is cratering and then they're screwed. It's like, no. This ecosystem is stable now.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't really matter what they do, aside from taking a quarterback or a running back. Every position group, if they want to take a wide receiver, say they do, which would be ridiculous, but say they do, it's like, okay,
Yes.
it actually makes some sense. Tight end, you wouldn't take quarterback, tight end, or running back. Everything else is like, okay. I mean, I can see it. Safety, maybe not also, but they're chunking down on what they absolutely need. 2 years ago, they didn't know what they needed. They needed everything. They didn't know which way was up. So I think it's a great spot to be in. Now, talk to me about you. I mean, you kind of let it in a little bit, though. Talk to me about your thoughts on offensive line. Say they were to stick and pick at 16. Is offensive line a viable spot for them there?
Yeah, I still think it is. I think everybody's talking about how, like a guy like Tyler Booker's dropping into second round territory. I still think he's going to end up in the first round. So I think he's a proven talent that could be a foundational piece moving forward. A guy like, Will Hernandez was their mauler. He could be their next mauler, even if they bring Hernandez back. That's a great person to learn from. So I still think that's a spot where you could easily say, hey, we're fine with taking offensive linemen here. We don't feel it's a reach. And you just need somebody that's going to be there for the long term. Like, how Paris Johnson is shaking out right now. That's what you need this next guy to be. And you're really not going to know if you've won this draft until you see that 5 years down the line, I want to say. I mean, you've got to see consistent starts and consistent just ability. And we're seeing that from Paris right now already. But I think in 2 more years, you can confidently say, like, yes, the Cardinals did the right thing by moving down, moving up, doing everything they could to get this guy, because he's turned out to be a perennial dude for them on the at left tackle.
Yeah, and yeah, agreed. I think my biggest fear going into this and, next year and the year after is something happens to Yalta Froholt. They don't really have a contingency plan. John Gaines has been fine. Mm-hmm. It really sucks that he got hurt, his rookie year in camp, where he was going to be that swing guy, that left guard center backup. Or, I think he was at that point slated to start at left guard or center. I can't remember. It was a couple years ago, but we got hurt, and he's, kind of a piecemeal guy at this point. If you can find a dude in the first 3 rounds, they could play guard and center, so you don't have to have the locomotive stop. That's kind of what the fine tuning needs to be at this point with this roster, where if injuries happen, this roster needs to be sustainable to be able to continue moving, because there's no excuses anymore. Like, either this is going to work this year or massive things are going to be being discussed, starting with number 1. So I think with anything having to do with that entirely, like, do you think that's irrational, taking an offensive lineman at 16 just to give Kyler Murray the best shot to show what his best is before having?
I think that's exactly. I think what we're seeing right now is, yes, the offensive pieces haven't really been there this offseason, because I think for the most part they're set. They need to add a couple of these big pieces like we're talking about with guard or another offensive tackle moving forward, but they filled out this defensive side to really make sure that's not a liability moving forward. Like, this is they're setting the stage for Kyler. Go do your thing and really show us that you're the franchise guy. That's really, in my opinion, there's no more liabilities anywhere around you. You've got the offense that they think is tailored best for him. Go show everybody what you really can do, because they've clearly feel like they can back him still. So there's something there that I guess half of the people around here don't see, because it's such a divided opinion on Kyler Murray. But I think it's shaping up to he's on the center stage now. Show everybody that you are the franchise quarterback that they paid you to be.
You know what's awesome about hosting your own show? You can change what you want to talk about. We talked about these 2 segments, second and third. Then we're going to talk about Kyler Murray next. Surprise, Locked on Cardinals, your team every day. At T Drake for Sports on Twitter, host of Cardinals Corner. They do a great job over there. Had a spotlight with Elijah Jones. What was that, last week? Another guy from BC in the quarterback room, not another guy from BC, another corner from BC who had injuries, who was kind of low on the depth chart because, Garrett Williams and Max Melton and SMB at times were playing well. And, the safeties were really doing their part. Dadrian Taylor-Demerson looks to be that guy. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Jalen Thompson, if they're going to try and find a spot for him that isn't free safety this year, or a strong safety, if DTR just says, this is my job now. And me and Budda Baker are really going to wreak havoc over the top. It's going to be fascinating to see, but go check that out. Cardinals Corner do a fantastic job. Kyler Murray. It's divisive. Yeah, I don't know why. Well, I do know why. The last 6 weeks of each season that he's played have been awful. Pretty much what it's been. He's also led multiple game-winning drives like he did last year. He was under the tutelage of one of the most inept head coaches in the history of football. And, he got drafted to be the savior for a dysfunctional organization since its inception. Those things are true. Okay, now the nuance between that is that's not an original story, and other quarterbacks have thrived in fields like that. Let me ask you this. Let's start here. What is good enough in 2025, barring any sort of unforeseen, knock on wood injuries? What's good enough to run back 2026?
Honestly, I think it's being competitive in a first-round playoff game. I know that's a very low bar because we saw the potential already last year of what this team can do halfway through the season. Obviously, the wheels came off, but I think this makeup, they have the potential, and it can't just be and here's the thing why, because we saw them in the playoffs one time before with Kyler Murray. That was an absolute disaster. It cannot look like that. They've got to get back to the playoffs, and they've got to be competitive. That's 2 boxes right there. That's really what it comes down to for them to continue what they're doing right now. Yeah,
I guess that's fair. I mean, I think mine is 10 wins. I think it's synonymous, depending on tiebreak and stuff like that. But the thing that I struggle with, like existentially when doing these shows, is 15 teams would be calling for Kyler Murray.
Oh, easily.
Right? Oh no, okay, you know what? You can take your Trevor Lawrence stuff and shove it. You can take your Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, whatever, you can shove it. Like 15 teams would be in Kyler Murray's DMs immediately. And I don't know, Tyler, why that doesn't translate to more wins for the Cardinals. Like, good enough is not good enough anymore. And it used to be. It's like, okay, 8 wins, 9 wins, that's good enough. And you run it back. It's the Kirk Cousins thing. Sure, Kyler Murray hasn't been as good. He's not as accomplished as Kirk Cousins. 15 teams. The quarterback position has never been deeper and never been weaker at the same time in the history of sports. Top 12 and bottom 12, college sports, Hall of Fame. Now, like, it's such a huge disparity between the two. That's where I struggle. Comparing to other quarterbacks, the Cardinals are in such a better spot in so many instances. And it's still not even close to where it needs to be for them to compete for a Super Bowl.
Yeah. And it's just, I mean, and that's the thing too, is you see all of the kind of dysfunction around signing other quarterbacks. Like, I mean, the Russell Wilson, he just got signed to the Giants, but you look at all of that carousel and the Aaron Rodgers situation and all that, and it's just, you sit back and it's like, oh man, thank God the Cardinals don't have to go through a situation like that. Like, they have
or draft one.
Yeah,
be in the circle this year.
He's stable enough to be the guy right now. But like you said, it's frustrating because he's got the potential to lead a team to the playoffs. He's got the ability. It's just what goes on in that final 7 to 8 weeks of the season for him.
Quarterbacks, and I've gotten in a conversation with people a lot smarter than me about this, and I haven't really been able to formulate this, but I'm still trying. The best quarterbacks are elite game managers who are special when their team needs them to be. That's what Tom Brady was. He was an elite game manager. Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was more talented than Tom Brady. Smarter on the field, but Tom Brady was more special when his team needed him to be than Peyton Manning was over the extent of his career. Kyler Murray can do things that maybe 7 other quarterbacks can do when he's at his top elite level. Other quarterbacks can't do that at their best. So it's this convolution of a 5'10" dude who was the only player ever to get drafted in the top 10 in the NFL and Major League Baseball, who never lost a game in high school, who was the Heisman Trophy winner. It's like, if you look at that resume, you're like, oh, he probably won 3 Super Bowls. It's like, it doesn't compute. He's not dumb. He's a smart man, okay? He works hard. Yeah, the first 4 years were brutal, and a lot of it was on him. I blame Cliff a lot. A lot of it was on Kyler too, obviously. What the hell's got to give for that 0-1 jump to happen? And I think we're going to find out this year, Tyler. Like, I think it's not like, oh, it's always next year. Oh, it's year 7. No. The conditions are perfect. We're going to find out. This is the close to them playing in a dome for 18 weeks with their bye this year. It's like everything is set. And we're going to find out if he throws that pick on 3rd and 9 down 2 when you need a first down. Like, I think we're going to find out this year, and it could be bloody as hell, or it could be just finally. And I don't know what it's going to be. I would lend to think it's the first one because we haven't seen the good when we've needed to see it. Do you agree? I mean, like, I don't.
Yeah. I mean, it's the year of there really isn't an excuse anymore. The talent's there on the roster. It's all come together. You got to take this team to the next level. It's as simple as that. I think for a lot of people, like I'm in the camp of this dude's got the ability. You've got the guys he's terrible. He can't do it. He can't he clearly can do it. There's a reason why he got picked number 1. There's a reason why the dude could go play baseball right now if he could. Like, he's got the athletic abilities to lead a team really to anywhere, but he's got to put it all together mentally and physically. So it's really coming down to, all right, it's your time to shine. You've got the pieces. You've got the defense. Go do it.
I'm just ready. I'm so excited. Because one way or the other, like, this is Band-Aid. This is Band-Aid ripped off, and it's like, trade him. Okay, for who? Oh, for some picks and hoping a quarterback works. Arch Manning, cool. The Cardinals are going to win probably 7 games next year as a baseline, regardless.
Yeah.
What makes it's like, oh, go draft Jackson Dart and trade Kyler Murray? Have you watched Jackson Dart play football? Like, it's not easy to be a quarterback, okay? And Kyler Murray, what you need from it, like, this is the actually really interesting part is you need the floor to be higher, not the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You need that looks like the 32nd ranked offense in the NFL for like a quarter and a half. Like, and then they go score 3 touchdowns in 3 possessions. It's like the balance needs to be there. And I think some of it is on Drew Petzing. Like, I'll get you out of here on this because I we don't get to do this often. So say it's 55-45 run pass for the Cardinals last year, just as a number, 53-47, whatever. I want to see more in the middle. Like, if this is going to be the year, put the ball in Kyler Murray's hands more. And this could be 5-yard outs to Marvin Harrison Jr. It could be wide receiver screens. It could be Greg Dortch slip screens. It could be screen passes, whatever it is. I want Kyler Murray to throw the ball 10 more times a game than he has been. I
don't even need to see that. I just need to see him running the ball a little bit more. That's I think for me on a more consistent basis, because if you don't have to differentiate that because I think at the end of the day, this team still needs to be run first. It needs to be run heavy. That's their identity. They need to bruise people in front of them, move people out of the way. James Conner, that offensive line is already being built to do that.
Yeah.
You need to have Kyler add to that. Be that speedster. Like, okay, Detroit Lions. They've got a great thing with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs there. You can almost have a Kyler Murray be that shifty dude that comes and compliments Conner a little bit more than what he has been, and I think that elevates more. Just get it in his hands a little bit more, even if it's through the air, on the ground, whatever it is. But that's where I think it's got to happen is you've got to get him more of a threat on the ground. Like Lamar Jackson, every week, everyone's out there like, this guy's going to probably pop off for 50 yards on the ground. No, like without even blinking. That's got to be the same thing with Kyler, and I don't think that's the case right now.
It's playing with fire, though. Like Lamar Jackson's Lamar Jackson weighs 20 pounds more than Kyler, and he's
I get it, but that's why Kyler is who he is, man. He utilizes that legs. He utilizes his legs, and he also knows how to avoid getting hit.
Yeah,
like that's the thing too. Is in somebody else's. If somebody else was in his body that just kind of just laid there and got laid out like Tua does, yeah, not a good thing. But this guy clearly knows what he's doing and how he can manipulate the way he hits the ground to avoid those major injuries. Obviously, we saw him go down with the torn ACL, but outside of that, he's got the ability to do that. So I think it's just you got to make a more concerted effort to get the ball in his hands, whether it's in the run game or, like you said, getting some more passes for sure.
Yeah, so fine. So you look at it as a running back, like just getting touches, whether it's running the ball or throwing the ball more. I can get on board with that. Yeah, we know we can take a hit. We saw it against the Jets, where he took the biggest blindside hit of the year. And then the last thing, how does a baseball player who went top 10 not know how to slide like a normal person? The dude tumbles like he's tumbled into a pool. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know. Anyways, Tyler, tell them where they can find you, man.
Yeah. All social media is at TDrake for Sports. And like you said, Cardinals Corner, you find that on the Arizona Sports YouTube page. We're also doing something really fun right now. It's the off season. It's the dead of it's kind of the dead of the offseason right now. We've got this thing called pulling cards. We rip a pack of cards, myself and my co-host, try to find a Cardinals player. We've been pretty lucky. Elijah Jones actually pulled himself. So
That's awesome.
it was awesome. Yeah, it was a great way it all happened. So definitely check all that out. And yeah, like I said, T Draper Sports, all over social media, ArizonaSports.com. You can find all my work there. Sometimes you'll probably find me on other sports too, like Suns, Diamondbacks, everything else. But for the most part, Cardinals, and that's where you'll find me.
Hardest working man in Phoenix. Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.